Alright guys, today we are going to be learning lesson 10.3, which is volume of spheres. So our learning target today is to find the volume of a sphere. Okay, success criteria. I can use a formula to find volume of a sphere. I can use the formula for volume of a sphere to find the radius. And I can find the volumes of composite solids. That's when you have multiple different solids. You might have like a cylinder and a cone stacked up, or a hemisphere and a cylinder stacked up, and you're able to find both pieces and combine them. All right, so our key idea today, our volume of a cylinder formula is 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, 4/3 pi r cubed. So if we were applying that formula, we would get volume equals 4/3 pi. Radius here is 4 cubed. All right, so we can simplify that piece using our calculator. So if we do 4 cubed, we get 4 equals 4/3 pi times 64. That would become 256 over 3 times pi. And that would give me, to the nearest tenth, approximately 268.1 centimeters cubed, because it's volume. Okay, and you could do all of those steps in your calculator. I just simplified first. All right, so same idea for B. All right, so volume equals 4/3 pi. Here they gave me diameter, so my radius would be 5. So that would give me 4/3 pi times 125. So that would give me 500 over 3 pi, which if I calculated that to the nearest tenth, that would be 523.6 feet cubed. All right, same idea here for the next two. You can go ahead and pause the video to solve these on your own. And then after you solve them, you can play it back to see if you are correct. So as soon as you're ready, you can play it, and your answer here should be 4/3 pi times 2 cubed, which would be I'll just do this, I don't have that much room. 2 cubed is 8 times 4 would be 32 over 3 pi, which would be about 33.5 millimeters cubed. All right, same thing over here for number 2. Right, volume equals 4/3 pi. They gave me diameter, so radius would be 8 cubed. I'm going to do this in my calculator. 8 cubed times 4 is 2,048 over 3 times pi. And when I do that, I get 2,144.7 units feet cubed. All right, for example 2, now we're going to work backwards to solve for a missing radius. So here they gave me the volume was 288 pi. So I get 288 pi equals 4/3 pi r cubed. So I'm going to divide by 4/3 pi, or you can think here that on both sides the pi's are going to cancel. Right, to get rid of 4/3, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 3/4. Okay, so if we do 288 times 3/4, I get 216 equals r cubed. Okay, and to get r by itself, I have to take the cube root of both sides. So remember, in your calculator, you'll want to hit that 3 button, and then second caret key, okay, to get that cubed root. Okay, and if we take the cubed root of 216, we should end up with r equals 6. Sorry, and my units here were inches. All right, same idea here for these triads. You can pause the video, solve them on your own, and as soon as you are ready, you can play them back to see if you solved them correctly. So here for number 3, again, I would get 36 pi equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, pi's are going to cancel on both sides. I'm going to multiply by 3/4. Okay, when I do that, I get 27 equals r cubed. Cube root both sides. And the cube root of 27 is 3. And my units here is meters. All right, same idea for 4. Here, they didn't give us the pi, though, so we're going to have to solve that. So I get 14 equals 4/3 pi r cubed. So I'm going to start by multiplying by my 3/4. Okay, when I do that, 3/4 of 14 is 10.5. So I get 10.5 equals pi r cubed. I'm going to divide by pi. And that gives me about 3.34. Then I'm just going to use the answer in my calculator and round at the end. I'm going to take the cube root of that answer. And when I do that, I end up with r equaling, oops, I forgot to write it. R equaling about 1.5 inches. All right. Here is another opportunity where you can pause the video and try to solve these ones on your own. And then as soon as you are ready, you can play it back and see if you were correct. All right, so starting with number 5. 5, they asked to find the volume of a sphere. So I would just get volume equals 4/3 pi. Radius here would be 16 cubed. Okay, again, you will use my calculator, and they want it to the nearest tenth. So I end up with 17,157.3 centimeters cubed. All right, question 6. Find the radius of the sphere. So that is what we were just doing. So again, I would get volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Here the pi's cancel, multiply by the reciprocal. When I do that, I get 3,375 equals r cubed. Cube root both sides. And we get r equals 15. My units here were yards. All right, and then last one, number 7. It says, which figure does not belong with the other 3? Explain your reasoning. All right, I'm sure you can probably find various reasons for each of these figures. But what I notice first, I guess, is the sphere doesn't belong because it's the only one that doesn't have a base. Okay, again, that is not the only correct answer. You can come up with various answers for number 7, depending on what you saw. All right, example 3, okay, our modeling real life. So here it says a hemisphere is 1/2 of a sphere. Okay, so you'll notice on top of the picture, right, we have a hemisphere. The top CELO of the hemisphere with a radius of 12 feet. So I tried to draw that in red. You might be able to see that on the picture. What is the volume of the CELO? Round your answer to the nearest 1,000. All right. So we have 2 shapes here, right? I have a cylinder. Okay, and I have a hemisphere. All right, so if I find my cylinder, right, I know my formula for cylinder is the area of the base times the height, which is pi r squared h. So if we plug that in, I get pi, my radius was 12, my height is, well, the height of the entire figure is 52. So if I take away that 12, which is this top part, right, 52 minus the 12 would leave me with a height of 40. All right, which would give me 5,760 pi. I'll figure out what that is later. All right, so now if I look at the hemisphere, right, the hemisphere is half of a sphere. So I'm going to do half times my 4/3 pi r cubed, which r in this case is 12. Okay, half of 4/3 would give me 2/3. And 12 cubed is 1,728. I'll multiply that by my 2/3. And that gives me 1,152 pi. So if I combine those 2 answers, right, if I have to add those 2 answers together, I would end up with a total of 6,912 pi. Or if I evaluated that, again, to the nearest 1,000, that would give me 22,000 feet cubed. Okay, so that is an example of one of the ones that are a composite figure. All right, again, final self-assessment here. So again, you can pause the video, try these on your own, and then see what you come up with. And as soon as you're ready, you can play it and see if you are right. All right, so number 8, it says, in sphering, a person is secured inside a small hollow sphere that is surrounded by a larger sphere. The space between the spheres is inflated with air. What is the volume of the inflated space? Explain. All right, so we're going to want to figure out the large sphere, right? And we're going to want to figure out the small sphere, okay? And then we're going to have to find the difference. So my large sphere, right, my volume would be, again, 4/3 pi. If the entire piece here is 3, that means my radius would be 1.5 cubed. So I can simplify that, and I ended up with 9/2 pi. All right, if I find the small, so again, volume would be 4/3 pi. Here, my diameter is 2, so that means my radius is 1 cubed. So I would just end up with 4/3 pi. All right, and then I would need to find the difference. So I need to subtract these here. Okay, I need to subtract here, so we're going to do 9/2 pi minus 4/3 pi. So I'm going to get a common denominator so that we can subtract. So let's make them both 6. So if we multiply by 3, I'll get 27/6 pi. And if I multiply by 2, I would get 8/6 pi. And if I subtract, I would end up with 19/6 pi, which if you calculate ends up being approximately 10 meters cubed. All right, and then last example here, number 9. We have a vendor sells cones filled with frozen yogurt as shown. The vendor has a cylindrical containers of frozen yogurt, each with a diameter of 18 centimeters and a height of 15 centimeters. About how much money will the vendor make when all the frozen yogurt is sold? All right, so here we had a couple different shapes, right? So we have a cone, which our cone is 1/3 pi r squared h, and then our other shape was a hemisphere, which what we learned before was 2/3 pi r cubed. So if we substitute those values in, my radius there was 3. Oops, squared, not cubed. And my height was 12. All right, so we can calculate that. So let's see, 3 squared times 12 divided by 3 would give me 36 pi. 3 cubed times 2/3 would give me 18 pi. 18 plus 36 would give me 54 pi. This was centimeters cubed. All right, so that's my volume. All right, so then we had that other piece of information where we had the container held, what'd they say? It had a diameter of 18, meaning it has a radius of 9, and we have 4, right? So this one was a cylinder. So the volume of a cylinder is again, there were 4 of them, and then we had pi r squared h. So we would get 4 times pi. My radius, we said, was 9, and my height was 15. So if we calculate that, we would end up with 4,860 pi. And then what we have to do with those two answers, right, to figure out how much we would get, is we would have to divide. Okay, which would end up giving us 90 cones, and each cone cost, it's at $1.50, so 90 times $1.50, we would end up making $135. All right, guys, that is it for your notes. So you can go back in the agenda and finish up the rest of the activities.